Welcome back to Film Crate Media. Today we're at the East Broadtop Narrow Gauge Railroad in central Pennsylvania. It's just after 7 o'clock on October 7th, 2023, and the Friends of the East Broadtop reunion is in full swing. We kick things off with 16 pulling a mock freight train to simulate what it would be like back in the day for somebody commuting from Mount Union to the mines behind some empty coal cars and a boxcar. Later on in the day, we start the regular passenger operations, the M1 excursions, and the M3 excursions. Once they were coupled up and did a quick brake test, all of us who had tickets for the morning freight climbed on board. They took us all the way north to Colgate Grove, spun around the Y, through the switchback, and headed south. Now on the way back, they gave us a little bit of a surprise. We actually went past the station, through the yard, and went as far south as they could take us. This is the farthest south passengers have been in several decades. At this point, the rain really picked up, but we didn't really care. We got some beautiful shots of 16 as far south as they could take us, all the way at that end of the yard. The East Broadtop Railroad and Coal Company was founded and chartered in 1856. A new group of investors began buying right-of-way and constructing railroad by 1867, and built a 3-foot narrow-gauge railroad between 1872 and 1874. The line opened between Mount Union and Orbisonia in August of 1873. They extended the line to Robertsdale by November of 1874, and extended to Woodvale and Alvin, with several branches extending out to coal mines. The main purpose of the railroad was to haul bituminous coal to the Rock Hill Iron and Coal Company to be coked for iron production, and to haul pig iron from the furnace for export. By 1900, the coal went instead to Mount Union and transferred to the Pennsylvania Railroad. The EBT also hauled passengers, rock, lumber, agricultural goods, tar, and concrete on top of general freight. In the early 1900s, brick manufacturing and coal were the main focus of the EBT. The roundhouse was built in 1882 and is one of the oldest still in operation. In 1929, the East Broadtop opened up a regional bus service. They acquired the Mount Union bus line in 1931, and in 1941 it was sold off to the Huntington Bus Company. Coal sales declined and the brick plant was converted to oil and gas in 1953. The mines and the railroad shuttered on April 14th of 1956. In order for the train to face north again, the EBT actually uses the Y at the Rock Hill Trolley Museum, all of which is former EBT trackage. The Rock Hill Trolley Museum formed in 1960 and actually runs on former East Broadtop right-of-way. It runs east about 2 miles and is actually standard gauge track rather than the EBT 3-foot narrow gauge. For about 3/4 of a mile, it is actually dual gauge, so the EBT can use the Y like they are today. While 16 was putting her freight train back into the yard, out came the M1, the East Broadtop's own doodlebug. It was built in January of 1927 by the East Broadtop in the Rock Hill shops under license from the Brill Company. It's basically a scaled-down model of the Brill 250 railcar. It was built from a kit which included the engine, air tanks, trucks, electrical components, the traction motors, and brakes. In 1956, the East Broadtop was sold to the Kovalchik Scrap Company. However, the owner, Nick Kovalchik, decided not to scrap the railroad. They initially repaired 4 miles of track and ran trains for the Orbisonia Rock Hill Furnace Bicentennial in 1960. They extended the line another 5 miles and officially opened as a tourist railroad in 1961. They ran every summer up until 2011. Nick oversaw operations of the East Broadtop from 1956 to 1977, when it was taken over by his son Joe and his wife until 2008. In 2009, the East Broadtop Preservation Association took over, and they ran trains up until 2011. The lease expired in April of 2012, and they were unable to come to terms with the Kovalchiks, and the operations ceased. There goes the M3. The M3 was built in 1928 by the East Broadtop, and it's actually a custom build. It was built out of an old 1928 Nash automobile. It was used as an inspection car in MOW service. Today, it gives occasional rides to small groups of people. It's rarely brought out these days, and is usually stored in the paint shop. After the closure, the East Broadtop had a skeleton crew to keep up with 15 and FRA paperwork. The Friends of the EBT took care of everything on the property, but no public excursions were held between 2012 and 2019. The Friends did operate a diesel-powered train on October 6th of 2012 and October 12th of 2013, and they took out the M1 for an excursion to McMullen Summit. The Preservation Association purchased Mount Union and its trackage from the interchange to Ogwick on June 3, 2013. This was in an attempt to purchase the property for EBT and to restart tourist operations based out of Mount Union. Fast forward to February 14th of 2020, when there was a press conference held at Orbisonia Station. It was announced that the newly formed nonprofit EBT Foundation had purchased the East Broadtop, and the sale included approximately 27 miles of the line, the yard complex and Rock Hill Furnace, and all associated rolling stock and equipment. All locomotives were then evaluated for rebuild, and 14 and 16 were selected out of the bunch. Roundhouse stall number 8 was converted into a restoration shop, and operations began limited operations in May of 2021. The first full season back in operation for the newly formed East Broadtop was in 2022. And by February of 2023, 16 was fired up and put back into service, for the first time since 1956. While 16 was taking the passengers on one last trip around the Y, the crew of the M3 was ready to put it away. Here we see the M3 taking a stroll back to the paint shop, and they stop briefly for the conductor to throw the switch. East Broad Top number 16 was built in June of 1916 by the Baldwin Locomotive Works in Philadelphia. It's a 282 Mikado, and it was the first of the large Mikados ordered by the EBT. It's equipped with southern valve gear, piston valves, and superheaters. Initially, the East Broad Top tested it with 60 empties between Mount Union and Rock Hill Furnace. 16 and 17 were the only ones delivered with welded tenders, as opposed to riveted tenders. Also, 16 was the last locomotive to be overhauled by the EBT in 1955 before its closure in 56. 16 went cold in 56 when the EBT closed, and it was taken out of the roundhouse for a photo op in the 80s. It was almost restored and run in the 80s, but ultimately 15 was chosen instead. In 2020, all the engines in the roundhouse were steam cleaned and evaluated, and ultimately 16 was chosen for restoration. Rebuild began in April of 2020, and it was completed by February. Up until this point, there was only one named locomotive on the East Broad Top. However, in 2021, 16 was named Nick for Nicholas Kovalchik, the man credited with saving the East Broad Top way back in 1956. Nick is one of only two named locomotives that survived on the EBT today, 12 Millie being the only other one named in 1960 after Nick Kovalchik's daughter. Today, the nameplate was removed for historic authenticity for the morning freight run, and it was left off throughout the day. Thanks for watching and coming to the East Broad Top with me. Don't forget to like and subscribe and click the bell for alerts, and I'll see you next time here on Film Crate Media.